Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time where gods dream and stories remember their light. They say the world was once lit by a lantern so vast. It hung above the sky like a second moon. It glowed soft as lullabies, warm as early dawn, a light woven from every hope humanity ever whispered. But even stars grow tired, and when the lantern cracked, not shattered yet, just tired, its light rained across the world like broken feathers. What fell was not flame. What fell was memory, and where one fragment landed, deep within a ruin of stone and forgotten prayers, a child opened their eyes. No one knew how long the lantern had been broken. Centuries, perhaps, or the space between two dreams. Time loses its name when light disappears. The ruins where the child woke were older than seasons, pillars leaning like exhausted giants, steps worn smooth by feet that had long since turned to dust, air heavy with the scent of unsung history. The child lay among shattered lantern glass that pulsed like sleeping embers beneath snow. Their first breath was quiet, like the world itself was listening again. Their skin held the pale glow of moonlit frost, and where their heart beat, light fluttered like a moth searching for warmth. Not bright, just alive. The child did not know their name, only the warmth in their chest, like a spark that remembered it once was flame. They rose unsteadily to their feet, bare toes touching cold marble, etched with symbols that flickered like distant constellations. The wind whispered through broken arches, carrying dust and melody like twins. It sounded like language. It sounded like sorrow. The child listened, not with ears, but with light. And for a moment, the ruins glowed, as if recognizing something returned, something lost, now breathing. Far above, unseen, the great lantern hung in the heavens, cracked open like a wounded sun. Its light no longer bathed the world. It bled. Fragments drifted slowly downward, each one a future, a memory, a beginning. The child felt them, not with sight, with destiny. For lanterns do not shatter without purpose. Light does not fall without choosing where to land. And a child does not wake unless the world is ready to remember. The first figure approached at twilight, a shadow wrapped in traveler's cloth, eyes like tired stars. They froze at the sight of the child, at the way ruins shimmered faintly behind them, as though dawn had forgotten itself inside the stone. The traveler fell to one knee, breath stolen. "You're alive," they whispered, but the child only tilted their head, light flickering beneath thin ribs. Alive was not the word. Becoming was closer. The traveler reached out a trembling hand. The child stepped closer, one small foot, one bright pulse. And in that moment, the lantern fragment in their heart flared awake, a spark remembering it used to be a sun. The ruins shuddered. The traveler gasped. And somewhere in the sky, the broken lantern stirred like a sleeping god. Light, faint but certain, began to return. The traveler did not speak again for a long while. They merely watched, as if afraid that breathing too loudly might scatter the miracle standing before them. The child stared back, light flickering beneath their skin like a heartbeat made of dawn. Snow drifted through the broken arches, melting before it ever touched them. Light protected, light remembered. The traveler bowed their head. "You are the fragment," they whispered. "The lantern chose you." The child did not understand the words, but the memory of light stirred, a distant ringing, like a shattered bell, still trying to finish one last note. The traveler removed a lantern from their cloak, or what used to be one. Its frame was bent, glass cracked like winter-weary ice. No flame burned inside, only emptiness, a broken vessel, a memory of radiance. The child felt drawn to it, as though recognizing a sibling made of ruin. Their small hand lifted, pale glow rising in their palm like a whispered sunrise. The traveler gasped. Light gathered, not fierce, but young, like a newly born star testing its name. It drifted from the child's hand into the shattered lantern, and the lantern answered. A hum rippled through the ruins, not sound exactly, a remembering. Carvings along the stone walls flared like constellations waking, each line a nerve, each rune a heartbeat. Dust fell in shimmering cascades. Columns shuddered. History stretched its limbs. The traveler staggered back, eyes wide. "You woke it," they breathed. "After all this time, you woke it." The lantern flickered with faint gold, like a dying sun taking one final breath. But the child reached out again, and where their fingers touched cracked glass, light poured through like water. This was not a flame returning. This was creation resuming. The traveler sank to their knees. "You are not mortal," they whispered. "You are the echo of the lantern above, the last spark of the old sky." The child blinked, not with confusion, with recognition. Somewhere deep inside memory that was not memory, a voice stirred like ancient fire, burn even in fracture, shine even when broken. The ruins trembled in response. Shattered pillars reformed like bone knitting under starlight. Rubble lifted, stone remembering shape. A doorway appeared where only ruin had been, not carved, reborn. Behind it, darkness pulsed like a sleeping ocean, but threaded with pale strands of light. A waiting place, a question, promise. The traveler looked to the child, trembling. "If we enter, the past awakens," their voice barely a breath. And so does what broke the lantern. Light pulsed under the child's ribs like a steady drum. They did not speak, but they stepped forward, toward the newborn door. Light followed like a loyal shadow, and as they crossed the threshold, the world behind them exhaled, old gods turning toward a future they thought lost. The lantern shard in their heart glowed brighter. The child did not smile, but for the first time, they shined. The doorway breathed, not like wind, not like weather, but like something ancient trying to wake. Light and shadow braided inside its threshold, like two rivers meeting after centuries apart, both yearning, both remembering. The child stepped through first, their glow dim but steady, a heartbeat of fallen starlight guiding them forward. The traveler followed, lantern fragments flickering at their side. like ghosts learning to burn again. Beyond the ruin lay a corridor of fractured night, a place where darkness did not swallow light, but cradled it gently, like a parent tender with grief. Walls shimmered with symbols the child somehow knew, etched into the stone like constellations that had fallen, and never found their sky again. The traveler brushed their fingers along one rune. Lantern script, they murmured. Older than gods, older than time. Their voice carried reverence and fear, for some stories are too powerful to be forgotten, yet too dangerous to remember. The child paused before the rune, light pulsing beneath their skin like recognition. They did not read it, they remembered it. A whisper rose inside their ribs. Lumen, not a thought, a truth. Their name. The glow in their body flared white-hot, not burning but belonging. The traveler gasped. You spoke, they breathed. You remembered. But Lumen's lips never moved. The name had not been spoken with voice, but with light itself. Further down the corridor, pulse answered, deep, slow, wounded, like the heartbeat of a dying star. Lumen turned toward it, toward something vast and broken, waiting in the dark beyond. The traveler hesitated. Their fear tasted like cold iron in the air. That is where the lantern shattered, they warned. Where the lightkeeper fell, where light was stolen. Lumen did not stop. Some destinies walk themselves. The chamber they entered was carved from twilight. A dome so high it felt like standing inside a sky that had forgotten how to dawn. And at the center lay the lantern's heart, shattered, silent, still refusing to die. The pieces hovered above a stone pedestal, like planets orbiting a quiet sun. Some fragments glowed faint as breath, others black as extinguished memory. But when Lumen approached, every shard turned toward them, like flowers seeking warmth after too long in winter. Lumen reached out a small hand. The traveler cried out, warning, prayer, despair. But too late. Light met light. Shards flared awake in a storm of brilliance, and the world exploded into memory. Lumen saw it all, not with eyes, but with existence. A lantern the size of heaven. A lightkeeper crowned in stardust. A betrayal, a shadow hand breaking glass. A scream of light falling like rain over the world. And Lumen saw themselves. A spark torn from the lantern. A child born from ruin. So light could learn to rise again. The vision burned through them like sunrise through frost. Their body shook. Not in fear, in becoming. They were no longer fragment. They were return. Darkness recoiled as if breathing, and the chamber dimmed to a hush deeper than silence. Lumen stood small in the vastness, glow faint but unyielding, a candle that refused to bow even in a cathedral of night. The traveler drew closer, hand resting gently on the broken lantern frame. Whatever you see next, they whispered, do not let it take your name. Lumen didn't answer. Light answered for them, a pulse beneath their ribs like a muffled sunrise, and the shadows moved. From between fractured pillars, a shape emerged, not smoke, not flesh, but absence given form, tall as forgotten gods, thin as the space between shattered glass. Its eyes were two broken suns. Where it walked, light bent away, curling like withered petals in winter wind. The traveler dropped to their knees, not in reverence but terror. "The breaker," they whispered, "the one who turned dawn to ruin." The shadow paused, head tilting with curious hunger, as if tasting memory on the air. His voice came not as sound, but as a subtraction of sound. "You carry my wound little star." Lumen felt heat flush beneath their skin. Not anger, not fear. They stepped forward. The shadow circled them slowly, its presence heavy as a forgotten sorrow. "I shattered the lantern," it murmured, "so the world would know dark as more than absence." Its fingers, if they were fingers, brushed the air above Lumen's head. "And you are the regret." Light flared from Lumen's chest, brief, blinding, as if refusing to accept the shape of that fate. The traveler reached out. "Lumen, light isn't regret, it's memory." Their words struck something within the child, like a spark hitting buried tinder. Lumen lifted their hand. A single shard of lantern heart rose into the air, spinning like a captured star. Not fire, not war. "Will," the shadow stilled. For the first time it stepped back. Lumen spoke softly. "Light remembers what darkness forgets." The chamber trembled, stone groaning under the weight of awakening truth. Shadows lunged. Light answered, not as beams, not as weapons, but in waves of memory. Stars being born, suns being mourned, the lanterns lit for lost souls. Of the night learning to dream, not devour. The shadow staggered, as if drowning in things once known. "I broke the light," it rasped, "because I feared what it showed me." Lumen's glow softened, not forgiveness but understanding. "You broke it, so something new could be born." Not accusation, reflection. A child born from ruin, teaching the ruin why it mattered. For a moment, fragile one, they stood not as enemies, but mirrors, light and shadow remembering. They were once the same flame, but truth cracked around them, too bright, too deep, and the chamber split into paths of dawn and abyss. The shadow retreated into the dark, not disappearing, but waiting, its final whisper curled like smoke. "Find me at the final light." Then it was gone. The chamber still quivered from the shadow's departure, dust drifting like ash from a memory too painful to settle. Lumen stood at the pedestal, breathing light, pale, steady, sorrow-soft. The traveler rose slowly to their feet, eyes reflecting fear and awe in equal measure. "You faced the breaker," they whispered. "No child should bear that weight." But Lumen was not only child. They were fragment, spark, survivor of shattering, a being born not to burn, but to reignite. Light flickered beneath their skin like dawn rehearsing its rise. The lantern shards hovered, listening. They remembered too. One glowed gold, past hope. One silver, old grief. One violet, unfinished dream. One blackened scar, wound, seed of change. Lumen reached out. Each piece responded with emotion instead of heat. Warmth, regret, promise, danger. The traveler stepped forward cautiously. Light is returning, they breathed. But it is not pure, not anymore. Lumen turned their gaze on them, a soft sunrise in human shape. It should not be pure, they said, voice steadier than before. Unbroken light blinds, broken light teaches. The traveler's breath stilled, struck by truth dressed in child voice. A tremor rippled through the chamber floor, not warning, invitation. A staircase unfurled from the stone like blooming bone, descending into shadow threaded with living light. The path downward felt like memory reversed, lantern fire flowing back toward its source. Lumen stepped onto the first stair. The traveler followed. Shards arranged themselves around them like constellations, orbiting slowly, guardians of a fragile dawn. The descent was silent except for heartbeat-bright pulses, echoing like distant wings. Lumen asked softly, "Why did the light keeper fall?" The traveler's answer came like wind through cracked glass. They loved the dark too much to banish it, and the dark loved them back too fiercely to let them stay whole. Not cruelty, not war, grief with sharp edges. Lumen held the shards closer, like one holding both history and future in a single breath. At the bottom of the stairs, they found the crucible of light, a basin carved from the first sunrise, its surface still warm with extinct radiance. This was where lantern flame was born, where stars learned to name themselves, where light once dreamed of endless day. Now it waited, empty, aching, ready. Lumen stepped into its glowless bowl, lantern shards following like petals returning to a flower long dead. The traveler knelt outside the rim, head bowed. Lumen lifted both hands, light gathering not as fire, but as memory returning home. Their voice was quiet, yet thunder-soft inside the universe. Let the lantern burn again. Shards ignited. One by one, they dissolved into radiance, melting like snow into dawn. White, gold, silver, violet, and finally the black shard. When it touched the light, the chamber shook like a new cosmos forming. Not destruction, balance. The crucible ignited, a sun reborn from ruin. And for the first time since the shattering, light did not only illuminate, it lived. Lumen stood bathed in the glow of what they had become. Not fragment, not echo, bearer. The new lantern flickered awake inside their chest. But far above, in a sky newly stirred by light's return, a shadow opened its eyes. The breaker waited, not defeated, not gone, summoning, calling, preparing for the final meeting. Lumen felt it, not fear, but completion waiting beyond one last step. The traveler reached up, voice breaking like dawn. Whatever comes next, I follow. Lumen's answer was only light and forward motion. They ascended. The final confrontation awaited. The world above had changed. As Lumen ascended the spiraling steps, light trailed behind them like dawn learning to breathe. But shadows flowed as well, not fleeing, not fighting, waiting. The traveler followed quietly, lantern frame clutched like a memory too fragile to release. When they emerged back into the open night, they found the sky split in two, half starlit gold, alive with newborn flame, half violet black, deep as forgotten oceans, balance made visible. And standing at the horizon's dividing line was the breaker, no longer only shadow, no longer only absence, shape clearer now, edges softer, as though light reflected inside them at last. They spoke without sound. Light returned because you rose. But will you force me to vanish? Lumen stepped forward. No, darkness is not death. It is womb. It is rest. It is where light learns to matter. The breaker faltered, as if centuries of certainty cracked like glass under warmth. The traveler whispered, "You mean to join, not conquer. How can day exist?" Lumen answered, "Without night to give it shape?" The breaker lowered their head. "I broke the lantern to be seen. Light was too perfect. I disappeared behind it." Lumen extended a hand, not to strike, but to invite. Light met shadow, not collision, completion. A new radiance formed, warm as dusk, gentle as moonrise, bright enough to guide, soft enough to let dreams grow. The breaker steadied, their form now twilight made breathing. Together they forged a new lantern, not gold nor black, but silver fire, the color of balance. Lumen set it at the world's center. It breathed once, twice, then burned, slow, tender, infinite. A world once shattered began to dream again. "Walk with me," Lumen said. "Be night to my day. Be memory to my flame." The breaker bowed, not defeated, accepted. They stepped forward together, light and shadow twined, two truths finally whole, one lantern reborn. And as the world healed beneath them, a whisper rose like new dawn. Broken things do not end. They begin differently. Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth.